Henry Kissinger, the notable politician and diplomat, was born on May 27, 1923, to a Jewish family in Fürth, Germany. However, as Nazi Germany became increasingly oppressive, his family fled the country in 1938, eventually ending up in New York. During World War II, Kissinger served as Army intelligence and was naturalized as a U.S. citizen. Following the war, he earned his MA and PhD from Harvard University, eventually working there full-time. In 1965, Kissinger became his consultant to the State Department. From there, he served several positions under the Nixon and Ford administrations, including head of National Security Council and Secretary of State under Nixon. Henry Kissinger is undeniably a very controversial politician who certainly contributed to the morally questionable and highly opposed legislation and foreign policy. He did, however, have great achievements that helped guide our nation out of turmoil. Taking all of this into account, it is evident that Henry Kissinger is an incredibly impactful and influential politician, with his foreign policy contributions making him a worthy candidate for the APUSH Hall of Fame. The Second Red Scare that followed World War II led to the U.S. involvement in communist nations. In Chile, the Nixon administration was responsible for inciting a coup d'etat against the communist leader. Kissinger urged Nixon to do this despite the fact that Allende was democratically elected, causing many to pin Kissinger as a war criminal. According to Barry Gwen in his book The Inevitability of Tragedy, this, quote, violates the notion that the United States does not, or at least should not, interfere in the domestic affairs of another country, especially when that country has not attacked the United States and is not considered an immediate threat to the American national security, unquote. One could argue that this quote-unquote American sensibility has been violated before, with the popularity of international Darwinism following the Spanish-American War, in which newly acquired territories were interfered with for American gain. However, this certainly does not excuse the coup, which also goes against the idea that it is the duty of the U.S. to support democratic nations and democratically elected officials. Kissinger contributed to this un-American and unethical event that no doubt influenced not only the Chilean government, but also the ideas regarding the U.S.'s role in foreign interventions. Fear of communist influence also prompted entrance in the Vietnam War by Kennedy and Johnson. This very unpopular war was defended as a way to stop the spread of communism into Southeast Asia. It was unpopular no doubt due to the approximate $30 billion of taxpayer money needed annually to fund the war, in addition to the high casualty rates and the fact that Americans stationed there were seemingly not fighting for any reason that would benefit the public. This prompted many anti-war protests and songs. Kissinger played a crucial and controversial role in the war from a political standpoint. He met 68 times with Le Du Tô, the North Vietnamese representative, to discuss possible peace terms and negotiations. Eventually, the Peace Paris Accords, which established the withdrawal of all troops from Laos and Cambodia, as well as a ceasefire in Vietnam, were signed on January 27, 1973, 18 years after American involvement in the war began. Both Kissinger and Tô were joint recipients of the Nobel Peace Prize for their assistance in the eventual détente in Vietnam. Kissinger's influence was incredibly important into securing eventual peace. Although the Nixon administration was significantly responsible for the de-escalation of the war, and for Vietnamization, the withdrawal of American troops, they also increased tensions with the carpet bombing of Cambodia. This secret operation, nicknamed Operation Menu, involved 3,875 bomb raids that killed up to 500,000 Cambodian civilians. According to an article published in the Cornell Daily, Kissinger, the head of the National Security Council at the time, approved all of these raids, as well as measures to keep it out of the press. Aside from the illegality of the cover-up, it also went against the vocal support for American withdrawal from South Vietnam coming from the Nixon administration. This considerably influenced the war in Vietnam, in addition to the people's perceptions of Kissinger. Despite Kissinger's questionable and war criminal-esque influence in the Vietnam War and Chile, his shuttle diplomacy in the Middle East was impactful in the Syrian-Israeli and Egypt-Israeli disputes and conflicts. Shuttle diplomacy, or the act of a third party to mediate the international conflict without direct contact between opposing nations, became needed following an Israeli proposition to disengage with Egypt. This prompted Kissinger to serve as the middleman in the conflict and shuttle between Egypt and Israel until an agreement was reached. Following this resolution, disputes, mainly about the settlement of Quneitra, arose in Syria and Israel. Because no Israel settlements existed in the town, Syrians wanted it back after they had lost it in the Arab-Israeli War. After adjustments to an American proposal from Kissinger, an agreement was made. Kissinger's crucial role in the Middle East stopped present and avoided future violence between nations. It is clear that Henry Kissinger played an impactful role in foreign affairs that had great influence both domestically and abroad. His role in Chile impacted the government of Chile as well as how Americans perceived communist nations. Kissinger's position in Vietnam and Cambodia impacted the war, as the Cambodian bombings heightened tensions and his peace discussions helped secure eventual Vietnamization. It can also not be disputed that his shuttle diplomacy deterred possible violence and conflict in the Middle East. Although some of Kissinger's contributions to foreign policy had negative effects on other governments and attitudes towards the U.S. involvement in foreign affairs, his legacy still, without question, had a profound impact and influence, which is why he should be considered for the Bush Hall of Fame.